A trial date has been set for Thomasville podiatrist Adam Frasch. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Paulo Salazar. Now, he's accused of murdering his estranged wife, Samira, who was found dead in the family's swimming pool in February of 2014. That murder trial is now set to begin November 16th. Prosecutors previously said they'd be seeking the death penalty in this case. Frasch remains behind bars without bond. His next court appearance is set for August 24th. And we're now hearing from the officer who shot and killed unarmed former FAMU football player Jonathan Farrell. A police interrogation tape from the night of the shooting was played by the prosecution in court today. Officer Randall Carrick is charged with voluntary manslaughter in the 2013 shooting death of Farrell. Officer Carrick is seen in newly released police interrogation video describing what happened after he and two other officers arrived at a burglary call in September of 2013. Farrell was shot and killed after he was looking for help after a car accident. Carrick has been suspended without pay since the deadly incident. If convicted, he faces up to 11 years in prison. And yesterday in Charlotte, dozens laid in the streets for a die-in in memory of Farrell. Traffic came to a standstill while protesters laid in silence with their hands behind their backs. They say that it represents the way Farrell's body laid for hours in the street after he was shot to death. There was also a vigil and a screening of the film Ferguson. A new witness has come forward in the battery case of FSU running back Dalvin Cook. According to our media partners at the Tallahassee Democrat, Cook's attorney says that the witness has a different account of what happened. That could help the running back's defense. Cook has been charged with misdemeanor battery after police say he hit a woman outside of a Tallahassee bar. He's due back in court September 2nd. Meanwhile, authorities have made an arrest in a Gadsden County robbery. Robert Lee Perkins has been arrested for robbing the Hinson County store yesterday morning. Deputies say that the 30-year-old was also wanted for another armed robbery from 2 weeks ago at Wayside Food Store.
Well, a woman come into the door and told us we had to get out because of the fire.
An investigation is underway after an early morning house fire in Tallahassee. It happened just after 2 a.m. at the duplex in the 3700 block of Maria Circle. Crews were able to put out the fire within minutes and keep it from spreading. Officials say no one was inside at the time and no injuries were reported. Damages are estimated around $5,000. Taking a look at your political news this evening, a Central Florida Republican filed a bill this week that would shield churches and clergy members from liability if they refuse to perform marriages that violate their beliefs. The bill filed by State Representative Scott Plotkin comes after the U.S. Supreme Court in June ruled that same-sex couples have a fundamental right to marry. Plotkin says that he will file what is dubbed the Pastor Protection Act to safeguard clergy members from being forced to perform marriages contrary to their principles. Now, the bill filed Monday would apply to churches, religious organizations, and their employees. It also would go beyond performing marriages and would exclude having to provide services and facilities. And be sure to tune in this Thursday at 11 for a special edition of The Insiders. WTXL ABC 27's Stephen G. Winmall takes a closer look at gay marriage and speaks with one of the key lawmakers pushing the bill. The federal lawsuit aimed at stopping the redrawing of Florida's congressional districts has been tabled. Representative Corrine Brown filed the suit last week. It challenged the current shape of her district, saying it created racial packing, putting a large number of African-American voters together. Now, she and another state leader have now withdrawn the suit since lawmakers are working to redraw the maps during a special session that started yesterday. And this comes as a second Republican enters the race for Florida's 2nd District seat, which is currently held by Democrat Gwen Graham. Neil Dunn, a Panama City surgeon, says that he was already planning his bid for the seat before last month's ruling to redraw the congressional maps. He says the potential changes will not affect his decision. A Florida mother is accused of leaving her children in a car unattended while she was drinking at a sports bar. Apopka police say that the incident happened early Sunday afternoon at Frogger's Bar and Grill. Police say April King was unstable and had red glassy eyes and slurred her words. While the report shows King only had one drink, police say that she admitted to being under the influence of the prescription drug Prozac. Officers say King also had a breathalyzer hooked up in her SUV but failed to use it correctly. One of the cooks in the bar called authorities after seeing King drinking at the bar while her 2-year-old girl and 4-year-old boy waited in the SUV.
The kid hit the horn. When he hit the horn, I looked at the car and I see the little boy in the driver's seat, and I noticed another child in the back, and the car was running.
Officers say King left the children alone for at least 20 minutes. Witnesses say King then left the bar but didn't go too far.
There's a lady that just outside by an alligator in the bit of her arm.
A Central Florida woman remains hospitalized days after an alligator attacked her in the Wakiva River and bit off most of her arm. Investigators say the woman was swimming in the river when the alligator pulled her under. Fish and wildlife officials say a man canoeing helped rescue the woman, but not before it took off part of her right arm. The victim was rushed to the hospital and is recovering after undergoing surgery.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened. Did the alligator completely bit her arm off?
Yes, it completely bit her arm off, right at the shoulder.
Now, there were 12 alligator attacks in Florida in 2013, and the last deadly attack was in 2007. A jail inmate died while in custody in Orange County, Florida. Max Garcia was moved from the Orange County Jail's medical unit to an Orlando hospital where he was pronounced dead on Monday. Garcia was arrested last Thursday on armed robbery charges. An arrest report says Garcia fought with a police dog and then spent a few hours in a lake before he was taken into custody. It's not clear how Garcia died. An autopsy is underway to determine an exact cause of death. Now to your news. Across Georgia, police are saying a letter threatening violence against American troops found by a National Guardsman was a hoax. The report raised anxiety among veterans who were already on alert after last month's deadly attacks in Chattanooga. But when detectives re-interviewed the Guardsman, he reportedly admitted that he had written the letter himself. The letter threatened American soldiers, calling them cowards, women, children, child killers, and promising attacks at full force. Police are not commenting on what the Guardsman's possible motive was. In Atlanta, students at Emory University were told to stay away from part of the campus because of a carjacking chase. Now today, a school spokesman says that a carjacking chase ended on one of Emory's parking decks. The chase began away from the university, but the suspects are still on the run. Police say they are no longer a threat to the students. Also in the Atlanta area, heavy rains have caused reported damages and flash flooding. In northwest Atlanta, police were on hand to keep residents safe after multiple trees fell down across West Paces Ferry Road, and it's a main roadway in that city. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to turn things over to meteorologist Alex Cordero, who is standing by. Alex, I know we're going to be expecting some rain, but nothing like the Atlanta area saw.
That's right. However, the same system that's bringing in those showers and storms will be responsible for some isolated strong storms later on this evening. Now, the coverage not expected to be great, but with the pattern that we're seeing, a few of them can be severe. If any are severe, you know where to tune in on our channel 27.3 channel Weather Now. Now, most of the area right now still featuring hot temperatures because the storm machine really hasn't sparked up just yet, but expected to do so later on this afternoon, especially when the sun begins to set. 96 in Tallahassee, 95 the recorded temperature right now in Bainbridge and Marietta. Lower 90s across portions of southwest and south central Georgia with a 90 reading at Perry. Now the showers and storms are beginning to fire up somewhat along Gadsden County near Chattahoochee, along US 90 south of Quincy near Greensboro. A heavier storm beginning to fire on up just west of Midway, and in tight radar across portions of the Suwannee River Valley just northeast of the I-75 I-10 junction. A small shower complex being reported north of Lake City. Now in Tifton and Tift County, portions to the south along I-75 25. This is the biggest storm that we're seeing right now. Nothing severe, but the heaviest of the action so far. All this in response to a cold front that had drifted through portions of Mississippi and northern Georgia yesterday, causing for some widespread severe weather warnings. Now, a few of those warnings can pop up this evening. Once again, not a lot of them are expected just because we're not really seeing the brunt of the force, but still some instability can help spike it on up. Now, the frontal system is still draped over portions of Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, as you can see here, but not expecting it to really cross our area until tomorrow. But as it crosses over our area, if you're on the north side of this front, you may begin to see more of those northerly winds. It will still be warm, but the drier feel may make it feel just a bit more comfortable out there, which is great news. And once again, the coverage will be greater tomorrow, even though the severe threat won't be as great. We'll call 30% coverage today, 60% tomorrow, and we'll start to level back off as the week ends into the next weekend. But I'll have all those details and all those numbers coming up on our full storm team forecast in just a few minutes. Paulo?
All right, Alex, we'll check back in with you in just a second. Well, as your News at 5 continues, investigators are revealing new details in the accident that severely injured actor Tracy Morgan last year. Plus, tensions in Ferguson continue as the one-year anniversary of Michael Brown's death passes. We've got details straight ahead. But first, connect with ABC 27 on our official app. Stay up to date with all the latest local news by downloading the app for free at the App Store and Google Play. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I just really wish we'd have peace. We don't need this. No one needs this. It's not just the police officers I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about everyone.
It was another tense night in Ferguson after the one-year anniversary of Michael Brown's shooting. Protesters returned to the streets despite heavy police presence, and the city is under a state of emergency after officers came under fire Sunday night. The alleged gunman, Tyrone Harris, is hospitalized and in critical condition. No shots were fired overnight. Nearly 24 people were arrested, however. Now, investigators say that they're focusing on driver fatigue, truck safety, and seatbelt use in last year's accident that severely injured actor Tracy Morgan and killed another comedian. The National Transportation Safety Board is meeting today asking what safeguards can be adopted to address driver fatigue. Investigators previously said the Walmart truck driver was speeding in a construction zone when his truck smashed into Morgan's passenger van. Officials are demanding answers after millions of gallons of mining wastewater spilled into a southwest Colorado river. Colorado and New Mexico have declared stretches of the Animas and San Juan rivers to be disaster areas. These images show a before and after look at what happened after a mistake by the Environmental Protection Agency dumped more than 3 million gallons of pollutants into the water. The EPA is taking samples of the area and says that the river's condition have improved. Turning now to your international news this evening. Japan is restarting one of its nuclear power plants for the first time in 2 years. Crowds demonstrated outside the Sindi nuclear power plant southwest Japan earlier today. Now it's the first plant to reopen since the country implemented stricter safety standards. And meanwhile, New Zealand's Prime Minister wants to change the country's flag. Next month, a panel will select 4 finalists, and those designs will be put to a vote. New Zealand is just a handful of countries that still have Britain's Union Jack on its flag. Now let's turn things back over to Alex with another look outside. Alex.
Well, Paulo, it may not be as rainy today as it will be tomorrow, but temperatures still likely to be warm even though we'll see more cloud cover tomorrow. Forecast temperatures for 5 p.m. tomorrow, specific time, but that's around rush hour where it's probably the hottest. Mid-90s in interior sections of North Florida and South Georgia, but where the front may be stalled, that may allow coastal areas to be somewhat cooler, still warm, but in the upper 80s. I'll have rain coverage details and a look at the extended outlook coming up in just a bit.
Welcome back, everyone. For the first time since Hurricane Sandy, a city in Long Island has a fully functioning emergency room. The facility in Long Beach was officially open for business this week. And it's been nearly 3 years since Sandy wiped out the Long Beach Medical Center. But today, the city is being served by a new fully operating emergency room. South Nassau Community's Hospital had been running the facility as an urgent care center. Wow, it's already been that long since Sandy
That's right.
touched. And we were talking a moment ago, remind us some of the wind speeds and the destruction that was done there.
All right, well, it was around a Category 3 system. Not when it hit New York and New Jersey. That was more of a Category 1 system, and it actually lost its tropical characteristics when it made landfall. But the storm was so massive, the wind field was so large that it caused a lot of destruction along the coastline in the Northeast. Sandy was the second most expensive hurricane to hit the U.S. The first most expensive hurricane that's about to have its 10-year anniversary, and that's Katrina. That was back in August 2005.
Yeah, we all remember that one.
Yeah, so a lot of the hurricane anniversaries are going to pop up, but you know, tropical storm season, really not the big issue. It's this front that's going to be the rainy issue for the week ahead. Take a look at what we're expecting later on this afternoon into the rest of the weekend. Well, tomorrow features a lot more storms as the front that we've been talking about for the past couple of days finally begins to pass over our area. Late week features somewhat of a drier pattern because winds on the backside of this front are going to be more from the north. Still warm, but when you're tapping into more of the land air, not the moist, humid air coming in from the ocean, it's continental, that's what we call it, it'll feel a little more uncomfortable out there. Weekend still with more sun, isolated storms possible as we begin to somewhat turn back to a more moderate pattern. Mostly cloudy skies all across our area. 96 in Tallahassee, 91 in Thomasville, 92 in Valdosta, with 90s being reported elsewhere. 90 in Perry, 83 in Live Oak, 91 in Apalachicola. Another tour across portions of the western Big Bend. Still watching this small storm system that's somewhat elongated along portions of US 90 and I-10, not really causing much of a disturbance, but still nonetheless a few rumbles of thunder can be heard out there. And also in portions of Tift County, a stronger cell beginning to pop up along I-75. But for the most part, a lot of the heavier activity still to our north, but that will be drifting toward the southeast in the coming hours. Later on tonight, we may be seeing some threats for some of those stronger storms. We'll have to wait and see. The SPC giving us a marginal risk for some severe weather. That means a very low risk, but still very possible with the pattern we're seeing. And with the daytime heating still firing up, take a look where we're seeing less of the cloud cover and more of the sunny skies. That means, yes, the heat that gathers at the surface can really help for some of these storms to grow when you have more of the abundant energy that's acquired by the heat. Now, take a look with this frontal system. It's still draped across portions of Mississippi, Louisiana, and even into eastern Texas. That will continue to drive to the south. And as it does so, once again, if you're on the north side of the front, you'll start to see some drier conditions roll on through. Forecast map showing the progress of this front likely pushing into at least South Georgia by tomorrow afternoon, but I don't expect it to completely pass over our area. So on the south side, you'll get more of these southeasterly winds. That means portions of the Suwannee River Valley, the western Big Bend, more likely going to see the rainfall coverage. South Georgia maybe earlier on in the morning and afternoon, but activity should diminish a little earlier for portions of the Peach State, which is good news for the afternoon, but still maybe a little messy. Tonight, still expecting some showers even closer to midnight, and then tomorrow, that's when we'll start to see the front pass on through, starting to show more of, once again, the coverage of those greens and oranges and yellows, those heavier downpours, mainly located out toward the southeastern Big Bend along portions of the Nature and Forgotten coastlines. That's where we'll see the highest rain coverage. Overall coverage around 60% before we begin to back off a bit. Thursday and Friday, somewhat drier, isolated storms still possible. Tonight's forecast will call for another 77 showers possible with the cloud cover around. May make it stay around 80 for a little longer. We're expecting temperatures to be in the lower 80s at around midnight, and with southwest winds coming out, that's humid. It's warmer, definitely makes it feel warmer than what it actually will be. Wet afternoon expected tomorrow, 94 degrees. We'll call average 92. Winds coming out of the northwest later on in the evening. We'll still see that southwest wind to come on through, which may make it feel even warmer because the heat index, even with the cloud cover, can make it feel like the upper 90s. Not expecting heat advisory numbers with this, but nonetheless something to keep our eyes out on. Coastal storms possible and actually more than likely for this area. Winds will be out of the west 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet, light to moderate chop for bay and inland waters. And with these south winds, the rip current risk will be on the high side. UV index extreme, even with the extensive cloud cover. Overall, just not the best beach day. It'll actually be once again better the further north you go, since they've already had their spell with the stronger storms associated with this front. 7-day forecast, talking about a lot of stuff here. We're seeing the rain coverage somewhat diminished for the weekend. More of that isolated chance for some storms on Saturday and Sunday, but it will feel somewhat drier. Now, it's not going to feel like fall dryness or anything, but if you feel those dew points drop just a bit, you'll know the feeling. It'll still be, oh, it's summer, but hey, it's not feeling like July anymore. And our average temperatures will soon begin to decline as well, so expect the trend of these heat waves to soon diminish.
Well, you know it's hot when it's still 80 degrees at midnight.
That's right. Yes, that's for sure. Especially with the cloud cover, kind of like a blanket, if you will. It keeps the heat in. Takes it a lot longer to escape into space.
So we're going to be praying for a little rain then.
Yeah, why not?
All right, Alex, thank you for that. Well, as your news at 5 continues, we'll tell you about a rare whale and where it was seen. Those details straight ahead. Welcome back, everyone. A rare white whale has been spotted along the Queensland-Australia coastline. Whale migration begins at the end of this month. This is where calves and their mothers journey south from the Great Barrier Reef.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet that was a sight to see. I've never been whale watching or anything like that. I've gone and seen dolphins, and hopefully while I'm here in Florida, I'll go see the manatees.
Why not? Of course. You know, one time I was in Fort Lauderdale late at night. This was a few years ago, and I saw one of those big mama sea turtles come in and lay like tons of eggs. It was cool.
Wow.
Yeah, one of them was huge. I don't know how big it was, but it was an enormous turtle, that's for sure.
Well, how are things going to shape up in the weather world for our people commuting home?
Well, people commuting home may start to see more of those showers, although I think when you start to settle in, that's when we'll expect more of the evening storms. More of an afternoon event tomorrow, but later on today, yeah, even at night, you may hear a few rumbles of thunder. The coverage isn't as great as it will be tomorrow because the front's still not necessarily over us, but as it passes over us, expect the coverage to jump on up. It'll still be hot tomorrow, too, even though that cold front will begin to increase cloud cover. But take a look at the values our 7-day forecasts are giving us after Friday. With some drier air filtering on in, may feel more like the upper 80s, and the dew points drop, starts to feel more like fall. Something to look forward to. And it's kind of like what we saw last week with the extreme weather on Friday, and then the weekend was clear. That's likely the pattern we'll start to see again here.
It won't be a complete washout.
That's for sure. Although a few of these storms can still produce heavy downpours, the main risk we're seeing tonight, those strong winds, usually 50 to 60 miles per hour, that could produce some power outages. So, but not a flood threat, not a big tornado threat or anything like that. So, any updates?
And we'll get more in our next half hour. All right, Alex, thank you for that. And thank you for tuning in. That does it for your news at 5, everyone. Your news at 5:30 is up next.